Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Super excited to be here. Maybe we can just give our names to our voices before we continue on. So, my name is Cianna. I'm one of the orientation coordinators for this year. And with me is my co host, Chiara.
Hello, my name's Chiara. I am the other orientation coordinator this year.
So, Chiara and I are super excited to be your host for the summer. Orientation 2021 will be taking over the Hoikety Choik from now into the beginning of September. So excited to be, here to share about orientation, but also Chiara and I are students. And so we want to share more about the student experience at U of T and kind of give this make this podcast a platform for idea sharing, experience sharing, tool sharing, resource sharing, and really like make this a fun, relaxing space for you all to just come and have some food for thought and also get some tips about what's going on here at St. Mike's and what's going on here at U of T. So we also want to thank the commuter dons for having done this past semester's worth of Hoikety Choik episodes. And I think they really made this like a fun chat room, immerse yourself in the SMC culture kind of podcast. And so Chiara and I hope to continue with that feeling and also bring our own fresh orientation, Cianna Chiara style to this podcast.
Yeah, so like Cianna said, we're very excited for this podcast. We're very thankful to the commuter dons for kind of passing the baton over to us for the podcast. A little bit about me. I am like I said, the other orientation coordinator for this year. This is my third time being involved in orientation. So it's really fun. I love it. I just finished my fourth year at UofT. I was majoring in political science and minoring in Indigenous Studies and Italian. And now in the fall, I will be starting at OISE doing a Master of Arts in Social Justice Education, which I'm really excited about. But a little fun fact about me is I really love tea. I love all kinds of tea, hot, cold, bubble tea, love it all.
Yes, and my name is Cianna. I am the other orientation coordinator. I have been absolutely blessed to be a part of the orientation team for the past 3 years as well. But I'm just like really excited for this upcoming year because I think like, each year is this fresh start to build on your previous experience and make orientation like better and better. And so very excited to be working with Chiara this year. Very excited to be working with our Marshall team and our leader team this year. And hopefully throughout the summer, we'll be inviting some of them to join us on the podcast and you'll get to meet them as well. So, like Chiara said, at U of T, it really comes down to introducing your year, introducing your programs. So, I'm going into my fourth year at U of T. I'm studying neuroscience, molecular genetics, and microbiology. So, all you life science students, you want to ask me questions, I want to help you and answer them. So, please do reach out. Um, and then, like, more about me, like, as a person, I feel like I'm the kind of person who like just loves meeting new people. Love it. That's why I love orientation. That's why I love like coming to university and like putting myself in those situations where I don't know a lot of people and have to really like put myself out there. So if you do see me on campus in a Zoom call, please say hi. I love meeting new people. So please say hi to me. But at the same time, I also am like shy on the inside. Like I don't come off that way anymore because I think I've like done a lot to just like keep putting myself in that like situation where I'm like, okay, well, I guess I just gotta put myself out there. And so like I also, if you're shy, like I can also be quiet, like, you know, I'm all here for the, make y'all feel comfortable, really want to connect with you, happy to like come and match your wavelength. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, so that's a little bit about me. Also love tea, also love bubble tea. I may have an addiction, but like that's okay. I would funny story, Kiara, like I don't know if you ever done this, but I used to live at Loretto at St. Mike's, which is the all girls residence on St. Mary Street. And me and my roommate, we both love bubble tea, both love bubble tea, both have an addiction. And so like in the winter, Coco closes at like 11, but we're on res. So like we're there and it'll be like 10:30 and we'll be like, should we go get bubble tea? And me and Bethany will be like, yes, we should. We should. So even if it's the winter, we literally walk across the street to bubble tea in our flip flops. Like there could be snow on the ground, but like we don't care. We're like in sandals, and we're like, it'll be fast. It'll be fast. It's for the bubble tea. So for all of you in warmer climates, I highly suggest bringing warm clothes because I think it's only when you've lived in a really cold climate, like Bethany's from Calgary, I've lived in Canada a long time, that you're like, snow, flip flops, those go together. But it's not recommended. I would not recommend it if you're not used to it. So yeah, sorry, I literally went on such a huge tangent, but
it's all good.
Let's come back to the main point, which is this podcast and what we want to do this year. And so we kind of want to talk about that. This podcast is for all SMC students. It's aimed for all years, all backgrounds, all experiences. That's our goal, to really make this an open and inclusive space and, an accessible space where you all can enjoy it. And at the same time, as orientation coordinators, we do also want to include some segments that are geared towards incoming students. And, maybe upper years are also learning from those segments as well, because, there's no way that you know everything about U of T. So we hope for this to be a fun learning space, discovery space for this coming year.
Yeah, definitely. And, we're still learning too. Some of you may or may not remember, Cianna and I were the hosts of the SMXC St. Michael's College Student Union's podcast, Unified. And that was on Instagram Live, and it's still up there. You can find it under IGTV on our Instagram at USMCSU. But yeah, we were the hosts of that podcast, and now we are very honored to be asked to do this podcast. We'll keep a similar structure in the sense that we have talking points, I guess, and a theme to each episode, but we want to stress that this is a very casual kind of conversation between two gal pals, and then our lovely guests that we will invite on throughout the summer.
I think you obviously know what the plan is because we both came up with the plan together. But yeah, our goal this summer is to just really highlight as many different student experiences as possible, because I think we both know that when you come to U of T, there's not just 7 types of students or 6 types of students. There's no type of student. Everyone has their own place that they're coming from in their own experiences, their own passions, their own clubs. And we really want to invite lots of just students who maybe who are not super well known at St. Mike's either. We want to branch out beyond just our St. Mike's student leaders. That's what I'm trying to say. We want to invite student leaders, but we want to invite more than that. We want to invite students that we've met in our programs in U of T, students who are in other clubs at the University of Toronto. We want to also invite alumni and kind of just give you all a sense of how many different paths you can take and the combination of things you can do. And I think something that Cianna and I are both really passionate about is making it clear that there's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's no way, there's just what you do to enjoy and make the most of your university experience. And that's a really unique decision that everyone has to make for themselves. And so this podcast is really aimed at showing you what different paths you can take, and also kind of introducing you to the different types of students that you might meet at your time here at U of T.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of like I already mentioned, the we're kind of just like going with the flow with all this. We will have, as we intend, or moving on, we intend to kind of have some different segments throughout the podcast, but overall, we intend to just like go with the flow, chat about different things, chat about topics that are interesting to us, both related to school and SMC, but also like fun pop culture things or, you know, what tea we're drinking. We really love tea. We won't talk about tea this much during the other podcast episodes, I promise, but we really do love tea. Yeah, so we just want to go with the flow.
Mm-hmm. And I think like for us as orientation coordinators, you know, our goals as individuals, as student leaders, not just as orientation coordinators, is really about like giving opportunities for students to develop on a personal level and grow within themselves because we all know that the information that you sit in lecture, that content information that you're getting, it's from a textbook. You could potentially buy that textbook and read that textbook on your own time and read research papers and watch videos and get an education from a library or from a bookstore. But that unique piece to university, to going to school with other people, is the other people and the different perspectives that they bring. And like when you interact with another person, you are changing your ideas and what you're thinking about. And at the same time, when you see other people succeed, you can also dream and think of attaining something even more than maybe what you thought before. And so, like, I feel like Kat and I talk about this all the time. We just want to give as many ways for people to, have more exposure, just like see more, learn more, and learn in a fun, like open, relaxing way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the great thing about orientation and kind of starting to have those new experiences, it's kind of when you attend orientation, it's a kind of the first experience you have with university student life and with other students in university and stuff like that. And it's kind of like the starting point of this like new chapter in your life. So you've graduated high school and now moving forward, you're going to be going to university and who knows what else is in the future for you. It's it's a little scary, but like it's so exciting going through that process and finding new things. Sometimes you take a course and you're like, I really love this course, and you take an entire degree in that course area. And I think that's the one of the wonderful things about university is trying those new things, meeting those new people, taking those different courses, and really finding what works for you and what you really enjoy. Because if you're not loving what you're doing, or not loving, but if you don't like what you're doing, it's sometimes a bit dull. So I think like it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting for us now looking back at when we graduated high school and now I'm graduating university. Cianna next year will be graduating university, kind of like how things have changed in like our own lives and like our perspectives on things. I know I always say this, but like I only got involved in university, like student life, last year, so in my third year of university. And if you would have told me in my like second year or my first year that like this is where I would have been now, I would have not I would not have believed you. And so I'm very grateful that I've had like the exposure that I've had at St. Mike's and the connections I've made there, because those connections have kind of like led me down this path. For example, I signed up for intramural for field hockey in my first year. I've never played field hockey before, but I was like, I'll just try it. And I met so many amazing people on my team that like encouraged me to sign up for orientation and encouraged me to run for SMICSU. And then one thing led to another, and I just got super involved. And I really loved working with other students at SMC and getting involved in student leadership and working on initiatives like for student mental health on campus or sustainable. And I think it's just like really valuable just taking that first step, even though it's like sometimes a bit uncertain. I think it's so important to take that first step.
Mm-hmm. I think also Kiara and I want to like acknowledge that the both of us have our own experiences that have led us to where we are now. But we also want to acknowledge the limitation that we cannot fully connect with the experience of our incoming class because we didn't do our final year of our our last 2 years or year and a half of high school online. And so we also, want to hear from you and hear what you all are going through and hear your questions because that'll also help us to like better, understand where you're coming from. And, when Kiara and I are talking on this podcast and when we're inviting our guests, I think we both want to acknowledge that like this is our own experience and we're not trying to say that anyone else needs to feel exactly like how we feel, but we just want to put our thoughts and our experience out there that maybe something we say like resonates with you and you start integrating that thought or that like mindset into your own life, and that would be like really awesome that we can be that sort of voice to give you some little tidbits, some little food for thought as you're working through your university career, whether you're an incoming student or you've been here, whether you're in the same year as us. Like, we really just want to, have this little talk. And so I want to ask you, Kiara, like, what did you feel like at the end of your high school career? Like, what was it feeling like when you were graduating?
I think I was a little nervous. Because all my friends were going to different universities, and so I was the only one going to U of T. And on top of that, I was not going to be living on residence, so I was a bit worried about making friends. I was also very introverted and quiet, and so I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna like meet people. But I just like slowly started like testing the waters and like getting involved in things. So like field hockey. I was also on like a sustainability club. But like those two things that I did kind of like were like, this isn't so bad, you know? I can like meet people through this way by like getting involved and stuff like that. But it was a bit scary that first transition because I was going to a new place. I didn't know anyone, and like I was worried how I was going to meet people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I also felt, I don't know, the my grade 12 year, I had um a lot of like family things too. There's just like a lot of stuff going on in my grade 12 year. But I really relate to this idea of like being the only one to come to UofT because, you know, I'm Canadian, born in Mississauga, so right outside of Toronto. But as a small child, I moved to BC and I lived most of my life in BC, visited Toronto sometimes, but it's more like Toronto's like where my grandma lives. It's not where I live. And so lived in BC and then I moved to the States in grade 2. So I lived in Philadelphia from grade 2 until grade 12. So that's basically, in numbers, it was half my life at the time. But in years where your brain is recording memories and developing your personality, it was the majority of my life, right? Because
Yeah.
grade 2, that's when you start, remembering things really well, right? And
Mhm.
so you can see my little teddy bear in the background. You can this idea that like in the States, I think I also like the school that I went to, there's like it feels like there's a different culture there. So for students who are from Ontario, and like the friends that I've talked to, a lot of them are like, oh, I'm gonna stay in Canada, but the choices in Canada is like more limited because there's this like university college system in Canada where like there are universities like U of T, like UBC, U Ottawa, like these are universities, but then there's also like colleges, which is different. But in the States, like it's not like that. Like there's no such thing as like a university and a college. Like everything is the same. And even if there are like rankings, it like really in the States, it just feels like there are just like a bajillion choices, right? Like, so for my friends, a lot of people are going to very different schools, very far away schools, or like even in like I don't know, for me, in the state of Pennsylvania, the state of Pennsylvania, just the one state. There's 50 states, just the state of Pennsylvania. There's probably more universities than like I know universities in all of Canada, right? So like that's like an idea of what the scale is like when I was in high school thinking about university. Like just this one little patch has so many choices. And then students are going to how many different states for university? Like I have friends who went to California, I have friends who went to Florida. So they're going quite far, but that's like normal for them. Like to go very far for university was really normal. And so like I just want to like also acknowledge that like, you know, the type of like attitude or like culture in your high school and like where you're going post high school can be really different depending on where you're from or what school you're in or what community you're in. And like for me, I was the only one leaving the United States though. Like for me, and I was going back to like Canada where I'm from, but to a city that I didn't really connect with. Like when I first arrived here, like, you know, my aunt would be like, Sienna, can you go get something from the grocery store? I'm like, I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to drive to that grocery store. And it's like 5 minutes away, right? So I really came here and didn't, you know, it sounds like it's familiar, but it wasn't really. And so I think like for me, I'm going on a huge tangent and I don't even know what my point is, which is also something that happens. But I'm going to create a point. My point is that like you know, when you meet students at university, like they might all just be, even if they're Canadian, they might be coming from a like experience where they don't really know the area well. And even if you're from Toronto, you know, everyone is coming from a place where they don't really know U of T, right? Like you don't really know an experience until you have that experience. So just to say that, like, I know that there's a lot of students who are online in a different country coming to U of T to also like understand that you know everyone is trying to learn and so to not feel or try not to feel too afraid of like asking questions or like being unsure because honestly like so many of us were unsure when we got here and so it's totally valid, totally normal, and the only way for you to eventually know is to keep making choices, keep trying things out and then ask questions along the way.
So true, so true. I think like asking questions is so helpful. If you don't know something, ask someone. U of T has so many amazing resources for those of you who have been to campus prior to the pandemic. You may remember there's people with like orange shirts will say like ask me anything from the, like U of T Central. They're like scattered throughout the campus. And you could be like, how do I get to this building? Or how do I sign up for this? And like they're super helpful resources, but I think transferred over to online programming in some way or another. But yeah, ask someone. There's so many great resources. St. Mike's Registrar or there's the Wellness Center. St. Mike's also has a wellness counselor. So many resources that you can ask people for assistance or guidance or help, any sort of question you have. Someone at U of T has an answer. And if someone at U of T doesn't have an answer, they have resources for people elsewhere that have answers.
Google might also have answers.
Google
Don't
too.
be afraid of Google, everyone. Just search it. Many things you can find just searching it. Kieta, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I think I've heard from some of the students that I tutor that they don't feel like they've moved on to the next chapter of their life. So for my little grade 8s that became grade 9s, they're like, I don't feel like I'm in high school because they didn't actually get to go to the high school building really. Um, and I feel like some, current first years going into second years might also feel that since a lot of them didn't come to campus and maybe this incoming class might be on campus, might not be on campus, might also have this feeling of like, oh, I don't feel like a university student yet. What do you think? What do you have to say about that? And like, what do you think being a university student should feel like? Because I don't particularly feel like I'm a university student that like, young people will say like know things. Like 13 years of like, oh, when you're in university, you like know things. False, 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 very false. And everyone very false. But like, what do you think about this idea of like feeling like you're in university?
I think like sort of the thing that you said about like when you're in university, like or thinking as a younger version of yourself, like to a university student being like, oh, they know things. I think being in university almost in a way like you feel like a university student because you don't know things. You're trying to like figure things out. You're trying to like see like what works, what am I good at, what do I enjoy, like what do I want to do, all those kind of what questions. And I think that's what makes you a university student in a way, kind of that uncertainty and like kind of that process of like trying to find yourself and like what you enjoy. But also, I think it's like the skills and the relationships that you build during that time period. So, like getting involved or, you know, working with others or sort of like different acts of service, stuff like that are, I think, are really formative experiences to like really make you feel like you're a university student. I don't know. For me, this sounds really random, but when I was like, I'm a university student, I got my ears pierced at the end of my first year. I got my helix pierced and I got my like tragus pierced. So you can't really see, but I was like, wow, I'm a university student now. I have like multiple, I have multiple ear piercings. Like I'm so cool. It's just like two additional pieces of jewelry that I paid money to get. But like that was like kind of a point when I was like, all right, we're growing up, we're trying new things, and like, you know, we'll see how things go. But I guess like connecting to sort of these new students who are not going to campus and who are not having those like formative transition moments. Um, my middle sister, she started university. She was in grade 12 at the start of the pandemic. And then in like this year was her first year of university and she just finished it. But she was like, this is so weird. Like, I'm just going to open up Zoom one day and then I'm going to be in university. And I was like, yeah, that is a weird experience. Like, she didn't have a graduation ceremony. She didn't have a prom like many of our up incoming students. And I think that that can be sometimes challenging to like put yourself in that mind space and in that mentality. But I think something that I've heard from her is like getting in communication with other students who are kind of like in that same boat, as well as like upper year students, to like kind of have somewhat of a connection of like community and like other people who have the same experience or similar experiences to you in the sense of like graduating in a pandemic, but also like upper year students who can offer sort of advice or knowledge from prior to the pandemic when they were in university.
Hmm. I think one other topic that I kind of want to chit chat about, Kiana, is this idea of independence. And I think a lot of students that I know who are in high school now or were in first year really like have this idea that, oh, when I get to university, when I live in Canada, when I live on residence, when I live away from my parents, I'm going to have this independence. And I don't know. From my perspective, I don't see independence as like freedom from like other people telling me, what to do, or freedom from my parents. And I also want to like recognize that we, like Ken and we grew up in North America. We grew up in I grew up in a kind of environment where like I had a lot of ability to choose what I want to do and like do things that are fun, and like go after opportunities that are not just like academic, but I also recognize that there are students who are coming into university coming from different places that don't have that type of experience. And this idea of like getting involved, doing things that are not academic might seem really new to them. And so I just want to also put it out there that like if your parents or your family members play a big role in your decision making and in like what you choose for yourself, like we're not saying that they shouldn't. We're not saying that they should. We're not saying anything about what should and should not be. I really want to make that clear, like early on, that like Kat and I, when we talk about our experience, when we talk about our thoughts, like these are our thoughts, our experience, how we choose to live our life. And every person is going to have to take a look at what is in their life, what they value, what their family life is like, what their like family values are like, and choose for themselves what they're going to follow and what they're not going to follow. So for me, independence doesn't mean not listening to anyone else, doing everything my way. To me, independence is I choose when I want to listen to XYZ. I choose who influences me, and I choose what my priorities are and what my values are. And that choice is what's going to influence all the decisions that I make. And so I know that everyone is coming from a different place, but I think this idea of like you being able to evaluate, like, I choose to listen to, person XYZ and allow their opinion to play a big factor in me making a choice. Well, that's not wrong. That's not wrong at all. Like, that's up to you. And so I really just want to say that, like, your choices are up to you. And Kiara and I aren't here to tell you to do one thing or another thing. We're just here to tell you what we did. And maybe something that we did might resonate with you. And you might say, that's a thought. Maybe that's something that I want. And, also here to provide resources to be a point of contact for questions so that, you can continue on this path of like being able to make your own choices and choose what kind of person you want to be and what kind of life you want to live.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, you know, we're just here to be, you know, other points of contact to student leaders and to hear the experiences of other students on campus. But that's something that we really are enthusiastic about with this podcast is that we really want to share many voices of students on campus, not just Cianna and I, or not just, those student leaders that you see at all of, or most, a lot of events, but like we want to show a vast variety of students on campus, different voices, and really highlight the intersectionality that is present on campus.
Absolutely. I have no other questions or things that I want to chat about today. Do you have anything else that you want to share, Kiara?
I do not. I think we're good to wrap things up.
Awesome. So, just to say, our podcast, I suppose, will be coming out on Saturdays this summer. And so look out for them. We are really excited to be inviting, like Kiara said, more and more students, more and more voices. And we want to have some of these fun talks about, what clubs you're in, what cool things have you seen in Toronto, what kind of like ice cream flavors have you tried here that you've never tried anywhere else, or something like that. But also we want to have those talks where we're talking about, more food for thought items, just to let you know that lots of people have different perspectives on things, and maybe y'all hear something that you like and you start thinking about it a little bit more. And we'll also, another thing that I also want to do is recommend to you all like resources for learning, in the sense that like, this is a book that I read that I think is really beneficial, and you all should maybe, if you like to, try it out, or if there's a show, or if there is something else, like we also want to share with you like fun things like Netflix, TED Talks. Like we want to do both.
Definitely, definitely. All right. Well, we are very excited to continue hosting this podcast. And thank you very much for listening to this episode. And we hope that you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.